Before Superman the movie released in 1978, superhero films were often considered low budget and campy. At the time, it was the most expensive movie ever made, and its groundbreaking special effects changed cinema forever. So let's take a look at how Superman the movie changed cinema for good. I'm Firelink Frontier and welcome to the channel. On this channel I discuss films, TV shows and video games. Superheroes gained popularity in the 1930s and 40s, and many were adapted onto the big screen in the form of serials, like Batman in 1943 and Superman in 1948. This was also the era when the Fleischer cartoons came out, which I'm sure a lot of us watched as children. However, this period didn't last. Following the 1948 comic book hearing, production of comic book movies and TV shows slowed, though there were still releases, including the first Superman feature film, Superman and the Mole Men, starring George Reeve, which served as a pilot for the adventures of Superman. The 1960s saw Adam West's Batman appear. However, after the comic book hearing, these were considerably less serious and more campy in nature. I remember I used to watch the Adam West Batman when I come home from school, and while they are silly by today's standards, they have their own unique charm. In 1973, Ilya Salkind first conceived the idea for a Superman film. His father, Alexander Salkind, attained the rights to make the film after a slow and drawn-out process. The casting of Superman was a difficult process. An A-list actor was wanted for the role, and it was offered to many actors, including Burt Reynolds, Paul Newman and Robert Redford. Richard Donner, the director, wanted to cast an unknown actor. However, he felt Christopher Reeve was too young and too skinny. Eventually, after 200 unknown actors auditioned, Christopher Reeve was cast. During pre-production and filming, Christopher Reeve undertook an exercise regime headed by David Prowse, who played Darth Vader, and he went from £188 to £212. Principal photography began on March 28, 1977, and the film was budgeted as the most expensive film ever made at that point, which was $55 million. Filming was supposed to last between 7 to 8 months, but it was being shot simultaneously with Superman 2, and due to problems on set, filming lasted 19 months, until October 1978. Problems arose between the producers, the Salkinds, and director Richard Donner. Richard Lester was brought in and worked to mediate between them, as they were refusing to talk to each other. Production on the second film was halted, which Lester himself would later go on to complete. 75% of it was done, but Donner was later fired as director of the second film. Despite the problems on the production of the first film, the film was released in 1978 to critical acclaim. The plot follows the origin story of Superman. It starts on Krypton, with Marlon Brando as Jor-El, Superman's father. Marlon Brando signed with a salary of $3.7 million, with an additional cut of 11.75% of the box office profits, which totaled $19 million in total. This was unprecedented at the time, and bear in mind that he only had less than 20 minutes of screen time. He refused to memorise his character's dialogue, so cue cards were compiled across the set of the film. With all that said, Marlon Brando does have one of the best British accents I've ever heard for an American actor.
This is no fantasy, no careless product of wild imagination.
The film sets up the sequel by introducing Zod, played by Terence Stamp. The Kryptonian High Council sentence Zod to the Phantom Zone. Jor-El warns the Council that Krypton will be destroyed by its exploding red supergiant sun. The Council dismiss his concerns, so Jor-El sends his son Kal-El to Earth before Krypton's destruction. Kal-El's ship lands near Smallville, where he's found by Jonathan and Martha Kent. The Earth's yellow sun gives him superpowers, and he's able to lift Jonathan and Martha's truck with ease. They adopt him and name him Clark. He grows up dealing with his powers, and Jonathan believes that Clark was sent to Earth for a special purpose. The scenes with the young Clark Kent were played by Jeff East, whose lines were dubbed over by Christopher Reeve without his knowledge. Jeff East said that this caused tension with him and Christopher Reeve, but he said they resolved their issues with each other years later. He had to spend between 3 and 4 hours getting prosthetic makeup applied daily to look more like Christopher Reeve. As Clark gets older, Jonathan dies, and Clark is led to the Arctic by a green crystal from his ship, where the Fortress of Solitude is built from the ice, by the crystal. He is then taught by a hologram of his father for 12 years, after which he emerges wearing his red and blue suit, bearing the crest of the House of El. Jor-El warns him against changing human history. Clark is hired by the Daily Planet as a reporter and meets Lois Lane, played by Margot Kidder. He starts his work as Superman and begins fighting crime and saving innocent people. We are then introduced to Lex Luthor, the villain of the film, played by the late Gene Hackman. Lex Luthor is a criminal mastermind who has a plan to sink the western parts of America by reprogramming US missiles and making his own land prime coastline real estate. This portrayal of Lex Luthor is a bit less serious than later iterations. However, I like Gene Hackman's version, and through the films he has some genuinely funny moments. He discovers Superman's weakness is kryptonite and is able to trap him while he launches the missiles. Once Superman escapes, he's only able to stop one of the missiles, with the other causing severe earthquakes, damaging the Golden Gate Bridge and Hoover Dam. When I watched this on VHS as a child, I didn't realise how these were obviously models. Lois Lane is trapped in her car and dies, causing Superman to alter history, despite Jor-El's warning. Now, I had a few comments in my previous video where I said Superman turned back time, saying that he only went back in time himself, so I re-watched it and I have to disagree. He looks as though he rotates Earth backwards, causing time to reverse, otherwise why would he spin it back the other way, rotating the Earth back to normal? I think the whole thing's just a silly plotline, but feel free to discuss it in the comments. After saving the day, we see the iconic Christopher Reeve smile at the camera before the film ends. This film is definitely up there with the best superhero films for its impact on the genre and Hollywood as a whole. It has elements of action and sci-fi. It's credited as reviving the interest in sci-fi during the 1970s, along with Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Its special effects were groundbreaking at the time and paved the way for all the superhero films that were to come. Superman's creators, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, thanked Richard Donner in tears. Shuster said that he was delighted to see Superman on screen. He said Christopher Reeve has the right touch of humour. He really is Superman. Siegel said it was exactly as he imagined it. The film received positive reviews upon its release and made $300.5 million. Superman was nominated for 3 Academy Awards: Best Film Editing, Best Original Score and Best Sound. The iconic John Williams score will always be a massive part of this film for me. It doesn't feel right having Superman without the iconic theme. The film also received a Special Achievement Academy Award for its visual effects. For me, this is definitely one of my favourite superhero films, and was the first one I remember watching as a child. I'm Firelink Frontier and thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe.